Welcome to Games Mystics Play, Ways We Distract Ourselves from the Great Work, with me, Chuck Dunning. Today's topic is one of equal interest to Martinists, Rosicrucians, Masonic esotericists, and, well, any mystical or esoteric tradition that I know of. It seems to me that most of us have some awareness of this issue, yet it can get too little careful attention and reflection. I first wrote about this on the Midnight Freemasons blog in 2020 and included it in my fourth book, The Mystic Tie and the Way of Oneness, of 2024. While this presentation highlights several such games, in your own reflections you might identify others, and perhaps some that are more relevant to your own experience. Now, let's get the ball rolling, so to speak. At the core of authentic mysticism is the inner work of penetrating deeply into the mysteries of our existence, making changes in consciousness to directly engage the energies and principles of those mysteries within ourselves, and thereby facilitating our regeneration and reintegration, the transformation that all our traditions at least hint at, if not overtly focus upon. Around that core are many things that beckon for our attention, time, and energy. All of those things, whether objects, ideas, or activities, have some potential to facilitate experiences at the core of mysticism, but they can also become distractions and diversions from it. One way to understand such distractions and diversions is in the language of kids' games. If you're like me, you'll at least see some glimpses of yourself in this list. You may also see ways these games intersect and reinforce each other. First is the game I call Dress Up. The regalia, rituals, roles, and titles of mystical systems and traditions can all be profoundly meaningful and useful. However, they can also become the focus of a game in which the pretense of performing great and important things becomes a substitute for actually doing them. During such games, a group or individual might even go through the motions of practical inner work, such as an invocation or guided meditation. But there is little to no authentic shift in consciousness, or there is a lack of follow-through with inner work outside the event itself, little change to our way of life. And now for Tea Party. Many of us find great joy in social gatherings with mystical atmospheres and themes. We can gather with kindred spirits, tell stories, sing, poke fun, laugh, share our latest quandaries and discoveries, and enjoy the good feelings and other benefits of relaxation, belonging, and togetherness. Even so, like dress up, this kind of activity becomes more a game than a real benefit when it serves as a substitute for, or even a barrier to, our inner work, rather than a source of motivation, encouragement, and support for actually doing the work. Connect the dots. Every mystic knows it can be helpful to study different systems, schools, traditions, authorities, and other sources of information. Our comparisons and contrasts often reveal possibilities of understanding we might have otherwise missed, give us greater appreciation of the bigger picture of things, and can produce temporary feelings of accomplishment and satisfaction. Yet this practice turns into a game as we addictively pursue those feelings, sacrificing more and more time to historical, intellectual, and symbolic minutiae that might have been spent in more productive inner work. It can also become a game of trivia when we begin relishing the acquisition of names, dates, events, and other bits of information that we can recall and then toss out at a moment's notice. Treasure hunt. The process of initiation and transformation is very much a process of discovery and frequently of things that are not easy to come by. A poor reflection of that process is the game of eagerly searching for that next obscure, rare, or highly guarded bit of information, ceremonial experience, meditation, or breathing technique. This is often done with hopes that the next find will somehow magically facilitate a significant experience of regeneration and reintegration. But the game of treasure hunt becomes most apparent when one realizes that chasing after such things takes precedence over consistently making use of readily available time for inner work. House of Cards. Keeping and displaying physical tokens and instruments of mysticism can provide inspiring reminders of one's commitments and aids to actual practice. On the other hand, the accumulation of ceremonial paraphernalia, jewelry, relics, mementos, documents, books, artwork, and so forth is the house of cards game when these things are primarily used to support one's self-image as a mystic, or when the actual practice of inner work cannot be done in their absence. Hide and seek. Many mystical traditions and teachers speak of the importance of practicing silence, discretion, and humility with regard to one's inner work and other mystical activities. The game of hide and seek manifests when we adopt attitudes and behaviors of circumspection, reserve, and aloofness in order to give the appearance of knowing and participating in profoundly mystical things. Now, why do we play such games? One possibility is simply failing to recognize that the core of mysticism is the inner work of initiation and transformation. The portrayal of mysticism in popular media can easily give the impression that these games are mysticism. Even self-proclaimed mystics may unknowingly assume this field is just a more exotic and intriguing form of entertainment or social engagement, and that terms like inner work, initiation, and transformation are just intriguing ways of talking about acquiring a peculiar category of concepts and social status. But there are deeper and more complex reasons for these games, and they are rooted in the fact that the prospect of transformation is inherently threatening to the ego, our personal self, how we know ourselves as unique human beings in this world. Hand in hand with the bright, elevating symbolism of awakening, rebirth, peace, and joy, the dark specters of great tests, trials, and death are universally present in mystical lore. And beneath our superficial thoughts of mysticism lurk powerful questions about who or what we really are, who or what we might become, and how transformation might shake up our lives and relationships. So, while our egos may be very attracted to grandiose visions and the pomp and circumstance of mystical institutions, or fascinated by the prospect of being the possessors or revealers of hidden and obscure things, there are also deep fears, often hidden from our conscious awareness, of the unknown challenges, demands, and losses we may face in true initiation, regeneration, and reintegration. Understandably, we may not feel up to the task, but our moth-like souls are still drawn to the mystic light. We might therefore use these games to acquire what seem the next best things, which are the trappings, language, and imagery of mysticism, or the facades of initiation and transformation. Even when we recognize the essentialness of inner work, we may use these pastimes to distract and divert ourselves from it, semi-consciously creating the excuse of being too busy with all the other activities we mistake for mystical pursuits. Furthermore, we can find opportunities to actually build up our egos through the games of mysticism, taking pride in the exercise of our intellects and comfort in the development of belonging and prestige within mystical social groups. These positive strokes may reinforce our avoidance of the inner work, and to some degree, we may even convince ourselves that we really are undergoing transformation, when in fact, there is more make-believe happening than anything else. Finally, I'd like to say that catching oneself in these games is no justification for shame, guilt, or self-flagellation. Those things can also become games. We're all human and we're programmed, even hardwired, to protect and preserve our egos. Additionally, all of us carry insecurities, existential anxiety, and emotional vulnerability, even when we're from the most loving and stable backgrounds. And whatever our reasons might be, including simply being content with the fellowship, fun, and fascination of mystically themed social interaction, there is no condemnation for choosing to not engage the inner work of initiation and transformation. It can be challenging enough to be honest with ourselves about what we really believe, what we really want, and what we really are or are not willing to do to get it. When the bright light at the core of mysticism is what really draws us, then we're ready to stop some of the games and fly closer to the flame of regeneration and reintegration. Thanks for joining me in this reflection on the games mystics play. I wish you more light, life, and love.